What if I told you that everything you think is solid and real, your body, this planet, even the chair you're sitting on right now, is nothing more than a cosmic afterthought? What if the universe doesn't actually care about matter at all? In fact, what if matter is just light that got tired and decided to slow down? Right now, at this very moment, light is traveling through your body at 299,792,458 meters per second. And here's the truly mind-bending part. The universe doesn't just prefer light over matter. The universe literally is light. Matter? Matter is just the universe's way of keeping score. I'm about to prove to you that you're not made of atoms. You're made of frozen light. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why Einstein didn't just discover relativity. He discovered that we've been living in a universe that obeys a completely different set of rules than we ever imagined. Here's what's going to blow your mind. There's a speed limit built into the fabric of reality itself, and only one thing in the entire universe is allowed to travel at that speed. Not matter, not energy, not information, just light. And that speed limit? It's not arbitrary. It's the rate at which reality itself updates. But before we go down this rabbit hole, do me a favor, hit that like button and subscribe, because this is going to be a journey that challenges everything you thought you knew about reality. And I'm curious, drop a comment telling me what country you're watching from and what time it is where you are right now. I want to see how far across this light-based universe this message travels. Let's start with something simple that's going to make you question everything. Think of the universe as a video game. In a video game, there's a frame rate, the speed at which the screen updates. In our universe, the speed of light isn't just how fast light travels. It's the frame rate of reality itself. It's how fast the universe processes information. Now, here's where it gets weird. In 1905, Albert Einstein published his special theory of relativity, and buried in those equations was a discovery so profound that we're still unpacking its implications today. He proved mathematically that nothing with mass can ever reach the speed of light. But why? What's so special about light? Let me ask you this. Why does light travel at exactly 299,792,458 meters per second? Why not faster? Why not slower? The answer is going to sound insane, but it's true. Light travels at that speed because that's the only speed at which time and space remain stable. Here's an analogy that'll make this click. Think of it like this. Imagine you're driving a car, and the faster you go through space, the slower you move through time. When you're sitting still, you're moving through time at maximum speed 1 second per second. But when you start moving through space, you have to borrow some of that motion from your movement through time. Light has borrowed a LL of its motion from time. It's moving through space so fast that it's not moving through time at all. From light's perspective, the entire history of the universe happens in a single instant. A photon that left a star 13 billion years ago and just now hit your eye experienced zero time. For that photon, its creation and its absorption happened simultaneously. But here's the kicker that most people miss. Light doesn't experience time because it is the experience of time. Light is how the universe communicates with itself. It's how causality happens. Without light, without electromagnetic radiation, cause and effect couldn't exist. Think about what I just said. You can't have cause and effect without light. That means the fundamental operating system of reality, the thing that makes before and after meaningful, runs on light, not matter. Now you might be thinking, okay, but what about matter? I can touch matter. I can feel it. Surely matter is more fundamental than light? That's what everyone thought for thousands of years. And they were completely wrong. In 1924, a French physicist named Louis de Broglie proposed something absolutely insane. He suggested that matter solid, tangible matter, has a wavelength, not that it acts like a wave, that it is a wave. He won the Nobel Prize in 1929 when experiments proved he was right. Here's what that means. The electron in your body, the one that's part of the calcium atom in your bones right now, it doesn't have a location. It has a probability distribution. It's not a particle sitting in one place. It's a wave of possibilities spread across space until something forces it to make a choice. But light doesn't have that problem. A photon doesn't collapse into a particle when you're not looking. It is the thing doing the looking. Light is the universe observing itself. Let me put this another way. You know how people say, seeing is believing? The universe works the opposite way. For the universe, believing is seeing. Nothing becomes real until light touches it. Until electromagnetic radiation interacts with it, it's just a probability, a might be, a cosmic maybe. Let's talk about something you do every single day that proves light is more fundamental than matter. You look at things. When you look at your hand, you're not actually seeing your hand. You're seeing photons that bounced off your hand. Those photons carry information about your hand, its color, its shape, its texture, but what you're experiencing, what's actually entering your consciousness, is light, not matter. Light. Now here's the twist that's going to make you question everything. Your brain never touches reality directly. Ever. Your brain is locked inside a dark skull, completely isolated from the outside world. Every single thing you know about reality comes from electromagnetic radiation hitting your retinas. Your entire model of the universe, everything you think is out, there is actually a story your brain constructs from light signals. But here's what will blow your mind. Light doesn't just carry information about reality. In a very real sense, light is reality. Or at least, light is the only part of reality you can ever actually access. Let me prove it to you. Right now, you're probably sitting down. You feel the chair beneath you, right? Solid, tangible, real. But here's the truth. You're not actually touching the chair. The electrons in your body and the electrons in the chair are repelling each other through electromagnetic force through light. What you feel as solid is actually electromagnetic fields pushing against each other. In fact, you've never touched anything in your entire life. Not your phone, not another person, not even yourself. You've only ever felt electromagnetic repulsion. You've only ever felt light pushing against light. The Australian physicist Paul Dirac figured this out in 1928 when he developed the Dirac equation, which describes how electrons behave. What he discovered was revolutionary. Electrons don't orbit atomic nuclei like planets around the sun. They exist as probability clouds, and those clouds are held in place by electromagnetic radiation, by virtual photons constantly being exchanged between the electron and the nucleus. Think of it like this. Imagine two people on ice skates throwing a ball back and forth. The act of throwing and catching the ball pushes them apart. That's essentially what's happening at the quantum level, except the ball is a photon, and this exchange is happening trillions of times per second. Every atom in your body is held together by light. The nucleus doesn't grab the electrons. Light mediates the relationship. Light is the glue of reality. But wait, you're thinking, what about gravity? Gravity holds planets together, holds galaxies together. Surely that's more fundamental than light? Here's where things get truly bizarre. In 2015, the LIGO experiment detected gravitational waves for the first time, ripples in spacetime itself, caused by colliding black holes over 1 billion light-years away. The lead scientists Rainer Weiss, Mary Barish, and Kip Thorne won the Nobel Prize in 2017 for this discovery. But here's what most people don't realize. Gravitational waves travel at exactly the speed of light. Not approximately, exactly. Why? Because gravity, just like electromagnetism, is mediated by particles traveling at the universe's frame rate. Gravity doesn't pull faster than light can communicate. What this tells us is profound. The speed of light isn't just the speed of light, it's the speed of causality. It's the speed at which reality can talk to itself. Nothing can happen faster than light, because happening itself requires information transfer, and information can only move at light speed. The universe obeys light, because light is the language of existence. Now let's go deeper. Let's talk about why matter is essentially just light that's trapped in a loop. In 1905, the same year Einstein published special relativity, he published another paper that would change everything. It was about the photoelectric effect, and it won him the Nobel Prize in 1921. What he proved was that light isn't just a wave. It's also a particle. Light is both, depending on how you look at it. But here's the thing nobody tells you. If light can be a particle, and particles can be waves, then what's the actual difference between light and matter? The answer is going to sound like something out of a science fiction novel, but it's absolutely true. The only difference between a photon and an electron is that the electron is light trapped in a box. Let me explain. Einstein's famous equation, E equals mc, tells us that energy and mass are the same thing. Mass is just frozen energy. But what is energy? Energy is the ability to do work, to cause change, to make things happen. And how does the universe communicate that ability? Through light. A photon is pure energy moving at the speed of light. An electron is that same energy, but it's spinning. It's moving through space. Yes, but it's also rotating around its own axis. That rotation, that angular momentum, is what gives it mass. Mass is just energy that's gone in a circle. Think of it like a spinning top. When a top is spinning, it has properties that it doesn't have when it's sitting still. It resists being pushed over. It has stability. Matter is like that. It's light that's spinning so fast that it creates the illusion of solidity. This isn't just philosophy. In 1930, Paul Dirac predicted that for every particle, there should be an antiparticle, a mirror image with opposite charge. When a particle meets its antiparticle, they annihilate each other and turn into pure light photons. Matter literally becomes light. But here's the reverse process that's even more mind-blowing. If you have enough energy concentrated in one place, light can spontaneously create matter. This is called pair production, and we've observed it in particle accelerators. Slam enough photons together with enough energy, and suddenly you have an electron and a positron matter from pure light. The universe can turn light into matter and matter into light because they're the same thing wearing different clothes. So when I said at the beginning that you're made of frozen light, I wasn't being poetic. I was being literal. Every atom in your body is light energy that got caught in a quantum trap and hasn't escaped yet. But here's where things get really trippy. Let's talk about time. You've probably heard that time slows down as you go faster. That's true, but it's not the whole story. Here's the full truth. Time doesn't slow down as you go faster through space. Time is being redistributed. You have a fixed amount of motion through space-time, and you're allocating it between space and time. Right now, sitting still, you're moving through time at 299,792,458 meters per second. That's right. You're traveling through time at the speed of light. You just don't notice, because everyone and everything around you is traveling through time at the same rate. But when you start moving through space, you have to borrow some of that motion from your time dimension. Move at 10% the speed of light, and time slows down for you by a small amount. Move at 99% the speed of light, and time slows way down. Light has allocated 100% of its motion to space. It has no motion left for time. That's why photons don't age. That's why, from a photon's perspective, it's created and destroyed in the same instant, even if billions of years pass for us. Now, here's the revelation. Light doesn't obey time. Light defines time. Light is the metronome of the universe. The reason the speed of light is constant in all reference frames, the reason it always measures the same, no matter how fast you're moving, is because light is the ruler you're using to measure everything else. Think of it like this. Imagine trying to measure a table with a ruler, but every time you moved, the ruler changed size to compensate. You'd always measure the same length, even though you'd moved. That's what light does. Light is the cosmic ruler that adjusts everything else to keep itself constant. This is why Einstein's theory is called relativity. Everything is relative except light. Light is absolute. The universe bends space and time to keep light moving at the same speed in every reference frame because light speed isn't a property of light. It's a property of spacetime itself. Here's a thought experiment that'll make this clear. Imagine you're in a spaceship moving at 99% the speed of light. You turn on a flashlight. From your perspective, the light moves away from you at light speed, obviously. But from the perspective of someone watching you from Earth, that light is also moving at light speed. How is that possible? You're already moving at 99% of light speed. How can the light be moving away from you at light speed and moving at light speed relative to Earth? The answer: time slows down for you and space contracts for you in exactly the right proportions to make the speed of light constant. The universe literally warps reality to protect the supremacy of light. Let's talk about why all of this matters for matter. Let's talk about mass. You probably learned in school that atoms are mostly empty space. The nucleus is tiny, the electrons are tiny, and there's a huge gap in between. If an atom were the size of a football stadium, the nucleus would be a marble on the 50-yard line, and the electrons would be pinpricks in the upper deck. So when you touch something solid, you're really touching mostly nothing. But here's the question nobody asks. If atoms are 99.9999% empty space, where does the mass come from? Why do atoms weigh anything at all? The answer is going to sound insane. Most of the mass in an atom doesn't come from the particles. It comes from energy. Specifically, it comes from the binding energy holding the nucleus together. Inside a proton, there are 3 quarks held together by the strong nuclear force. But those 3 quarks only account for about 1% of the proton's mass. The other 99% is the binding energy, the energy of the gluon field holding the quarks together. Mass is mostly just trapped energy, frozen light. But here's where it gets even weirder. In 2012, CERN announced they discovered the Higgs boson, the particle that gives other particles mass. Peter Higgs and Francois Englert won the Nobel Prize in 2013 for predicting its existence. Here's what the Higgs field does. It permeates all of space, and as particles move through it, they interact with it. That interaction creates drag, and that drag is what we experience as mass. Particles that interact strongly with the Higgs field have a lot of mass. Particles that barely interact with it have very little mass. And photons? Photons don't interact with the Higgs field at all. That's why they have no mass. That's why they can travel at light speed. Think of it like moving through water versus moving through air. The water creates more drag, so you seem heavier in water. The Higgs field is like the water, and different particles experience different amounts of drag. But here's the kicker. The Higgs field itself is just another quantum field, just like the electromagnetic field. It's just another way for energy to be organized in space. Mass isn't a fundamental property of matter. Mass is just how much certain fields resist changing their state. Light doesn't have this problem because light doesn't interact with the Higgs field. Light moves freely, unburdened by mass, at the universe's maximum speed. Matter is stuck slogging through the Higgs molasses, accumulating inertia, accumulating mass, slowing down. The universe obeys light because light is free. Matter is imprisoned by its own interactions. Now we're going to talk about something that's going to completely mess with your head. The universe doesn't just prefer light over matter. The universe might not need matter at all. In 1948, Richard Feynman developed something called Feynman diagrams, a way of visualizing quantum interactions. These diagrams are beautiful and elegant, and they revealed something shocking. Every interaction between particles can be described as an exchange of virtual photons. When two electrons repel each other, they're not actually touching or pushing. They're exchanging virtual photons, particles of light that exist for such a brief moment that they violate the law of conservation of energy. The Heisenberg uncertainty principle allows them to borrow energy from the vacuum, exist just long enough to transmit a force, and then disappear. Everything that happens in the universe, every force, every interaction, every change is mediated by particles that travel at light speed. Photons for electromagnetism, gluons for the strong force, W and Z bosons for the weak force. Even the hypothetical graviton for gravity would travel at light speed. Matter doesn't interact with other matter directly. Matter sends light speed messengers back and forth. The universe doesn't run on matter. It runs on information carried by light speed particles. Here's an analogy. Think of matter as the nouns in a sentence and light as the verbs. You can't have a sentence without verbs. The nouns just sit there, meaningless, unless verbs connect them and make them do something. Matter can't do anything without light speed particles telling it what to do. But here's where it gets truly mind-bending. In 1967, physicist John Wheeler proposed something called it from bit, the idea that information is more fundamental than physical reality. He suggested that the universe doesn't consist of matter and energy, obeying mathematical laws. Instead, the universe consists of information, and matter and energy are just ways that information manifests. If Wheeler was right, and a lot of modern quantum physicists think he was, then light isn't just more important than matter. Light is reality, and matter is just a pattern in the light show. Let's talk about how light creates structure in the universe. Let's talk about why anything exists at all. After the Big Bang, for about 380,000 years, the universe was so hot and dense that matter couldn't form atoms. Electrons and nuclei existed, but every time they tried to combine, a photon would smack into them and break them apart. The universe was a fog of light and particles, completely opaque. Then the universe expanded and cooled enough that electrons could finally bind to nuclei without being immediately knocked loose. This moment is called recombination, and it's when the universe became transparent for the first time. Light could finally travel freely through space. The photons from that moment are still traveling through the universe today. We detect them as the cosmic microwave background radiation, the afterglow of the Big Bang. But here's what's crucial. Matter couldn't organize into complex structure stars, galaxies, planets, people until light was free to move. Light had to get out of the way before matter could do anything interesting. Why? Because light carries energy, and energy creates pressure. When light is trapped in a dense medium, that pressure prevents matter from collapsing under its own gravity. Once light could escape, matter could finally clump together, forming the first stars about 400 million years after the Big Bang. So here's the paradox. Matter needs light to interact and communicate, but matter also needs light to get out of the way before it can build anything. The universe is a delicate dance between light and matter, and light is the one calling the steps. Now let's talk about stars. A star is essentially a light-making machine. It crushes matter together so hard that atomic nuclei fuse, releasing energy-releasing light. That light creates outward pressure that balances the inward pull of gravity. A star is stable only because light is pushing back against gravity. When a star dies, if it's massive enough, it collapses into a black hole. And what is a black hole? It's a place where gravity is so strong that not even light can escape. It's a place where light loses the battle. But even then, even in the darkest, most extreme objects in the universe, light still defines the boundary. The event horizon, the point of no return, is defined as the surface where light can no longer escape. Light sets the rules even for its own prison. And here's something that'll blow your mind. Stephen Hawking proved in 1974 that black holes emit Hawking radiation, and given enough time, they evaporate completely. They turn into light. Even black holes, the ultimate victory of gravity over light, eventually surrender and become light again. Everything in the universe eventually becomes light. Stars fuse matter and emit light. Black holes evaporate into light. Even you, your body, is powered by ATP molecules that store and release energy. Energy that originally came from sunlight, captured by plants, or by plants eaten by animals you eat. You're a biological machine that runs on captured sunlight. You're not just made of frozen light. You're powered by light. Now I want to take you to the absolute edge of physics. Let's talk about the holographic principle. In the 1990s, physicists Leonard Susskind and Gerard T. Hooft proposed something that sounds like complete science fiction. They suggested that our three-dimensional universe might actually be a projection from a two-dimensional surface, like a hologram. Everything you see, everything you experience, everything you or might be information encoded on a distant two-dimensional boundary. Why would anyone think something so crazy? Because of black holes. When something falls into a black hole, it seems like the information about that object is lost forever. But quantum mechanics says information can't be destroyed. This contradiction is called the black hole information paradox, and it bothered physicists for decades. The solution, it turns out, is that information falling into a black hole isn't lost inside it. It's encoded on the event horizon, the two-dimensional surface of the black hole. The three-dimensional interior is actually just a projection of the information stored on the two-dimensional surface. And if that's true for black holes, it might be true for the entire universe. Here's what this means. The universe might not be fundamentally three-dimensional. It might be fundamentally two-dimensional. And the three-dimensional space you're experiencing right now is just a hologram, a projection, a shadow cast by information encoded on a distant cosmic boundary. And what carries that information? What projects that hologram? Light, electromagnetic radiation. The universe doesn't just obey light. The universe might literally be light, and matter is just a pattern in the projection. Think of it like a movie. When you watch a movie, you see three-dimensional space, depth, movement. But it's all projected from a two-dimensional screen. The depth isn't real. It's information about depth encoded in patterns of light. The holographic principle says reality works the same way. Now, before your brain completely melts, let me bring this back to something tangible. Let's talk about how this affects you right now in your daily life. Every decision you make, every thought you have, every sensation you feel is the result of electrochemical signals in your brain. Those signals are transmitted by ions moving across cell membranes, creating tiny electrical currents. And electricity? That's just moving charges creating electromagnetic fields. Like your thoughts are made of light signals. Your consciousness, the thing that makes you you, is an electromagnetic phenomenon. When you think, you're literally creating patterns of light inside your skull. But here's what's truly profound. Those light patterns aren't just representing your thoughts. They are your thoughts. There's no separate you observing the electrical activity in your brain. The electrical activity is you. You're not a passenger in a meat vehicle. You're the electromagnetic storm itself. And here's where it gets emotional. When you love someone, when you feel joy or sadness or wonder, those feelings are patterns of light. Love is light organized in a particular way. So is grief. So is hope. Every emotion you've ever felt is a configuration of electromagnetic energy in your neurons. You're not just made of light. You're a conscious pattern of light experiencing itself. Now, think about what happens when you look at another person. Photons bounce off their face, enter your eyes, and create electrical signals in your brain that form your perception of them. But they're doing the same thing. Photons are bouncing off you, entering their eyes, creating electrical signals that form their perception of you. You're two patterns of light, observing each other through light and forming ideas about each other made of light. Every human interaction is light talking to light through the medium of light. When you touch someone, electromagnetic fields repel. When you see someone, photons carry information. When you think about someone, electrical impulses fire. Every single way you connect to another person is mediated by light. We're not separate beings made of matter, occasionally interacting. We're continuous patterns in the electromagnetic field, constantly exchanging photons, constantly influencing each other at the speed of light. Let's talk about how this changes your relationship with time and space. You've probably heard that we see stars as they were in the past, because their light takes time to reach us. The sun you see is 8 minutes old. The nearest star you see at night is 4 years old. The furthest galaxies we've observed are over 13 billion light years away. We're seeing them as they were just a few 100 million years after the Big Bang. But here's what most people don't realize. You're also seeing your own hand in the past. Light takes time to travel from your hand to your eye. Not much time, about a billionth of a second, but it's still the past. You've never seen the present. You've only ever seen the past because light takes time to travel. Your entire experience of reality is delayed. You're living in a universe where cause and effect are separated by the speed of light. When something happens right now on a star 4 light years away, there's no such thing as right now for you. Their now won't reach you for 4 years. In a very real sense, that event hasn't happened yet for you. It's still in your future, even though it's already in their past. Einstein called this the relativity of simultaneity, and it means that now isn't universal. Different observers in different locations and moving at different speeds will disagree about what's happening now across the universe. The only thing everyone agrees on is the speed of light. Light is the one constant, the one truth that doesn't depend on your reference frame. So when I say the universe obeys light, I mean it in the most fundamental way possible. Light is the only thing that defines what is means. Without light connecting events, there is no causality. Without light carrying information, there is no before and after. Light is the thread that stitches spacetime together. Here's a thought experiment. Imagine you could move faster than light. You could theoretically see events happening in reverse order. You could see the effect before the cause. You could watch a broken egg unbreaking, water flowing uphill, a person unborn. Moving faster than light doesn't just mean going fast. It means violating causality itself. It means breaking the logical structure of reality. That's why nothing can move faster than light. Not because light is special in itself, but because light speed is the speed at which causality propagates. It's the speed at which the universe computes what happens next. Now let's talk about quantum mechanics and why light is even more fundamental than you thought. In quantum mechanics, particles don't have definite positions or velocities until you measure them. They exist in a superposition of all possible states. An electron isn't here or there. It's a wave of probability spread across space, simultaneously, everywhere it could be. But here's the weird part. When you measure the electron, when you shine light on it and look at where it is, it collapses into a definite state. The act of measurement forces it to choose. This is called the observer effect, and it's been confirmed by thousands of experiments. The most famous is the double-slit experiment, where electrons create an interference pattern like waves when you're not watching, but act like particles when you are. But here's the question that haunted physicists for decades. Why does observation change the outcome? What counts as an observation? The answer is profoundly connected to light. An observation isn't just looking. An observation is any interaction that exchanges energy and information. And how is energy and information exchanged? Through light-speed particles, photons, virtual photons, and gauge boson. When you measure an electron's position, you have to bounce a photon off it. That photon carries information about where the electron is, but it also changes the electron by giving it a kick. You can't observe something without disturbing it, because observation requires interaction. An interaction requires exchanging light-speed particles. The universe isn't made of particles sitting in definite locations, doing definite things. The universe is made of probability waves that collapse into definite states when they interact with other systems through light-speed mediators. Reality doesn't exist until light touches it. Light is the thing that makes possibilities become actualities. Niels Bohr, one of the founders of quantum mechanics, once said, "There is no quantum world. There is only an abstract quantum description." It is wrong to think that the task of physics is to find out how nature is. Physics concerns what we can say about nature. What he meant is that reality isn't out there, independent of observation. Reality is the set of relationships between systems, mediated by light-speed interactions. Light doesn't just show us reality. Light creates reality by connecting things causally. Let's talk about entropy and the arrow of time. The second law of thermodynamics says that entropy disorder always increases over time. A broken egg never unbreaks. Heat flows from hot to cold, never the reverse. The universe is running down, getting more disordered, approaching a state called heat death, where everything is at the same temperature and nothing can happen anymore. But why? Why does time have an arrow? Why can't time run backward? The answer has to do with information and light. Entropy is really a measure of how much information you'd need to describe a system. A perfectly ordered system has low entropy. You can describe it simply. All the gas molecules are in the left half of the container. A disordered system has high entropy. You need a lot of information to describe exactly where each molecule is. When systems interact, they exchange information. And how is information exchanged? Through light-speed particles. Every interaction shuffles information around, spreading it more thinly across more particles, increasing entropy. The arrow of time, the fact that cause precedes effect, that we remember the past, but not the future, is the result of information spreading outward at light speed. The present is the boundary between ordered past and disordered future, and that boundary expands at the speed of light. Light doesn't just mediate the arrow of time. Light is the arrow of time. Here's something that'll blow your mind. Photons don't experience the arrow of time. From a photon's perspective, it's created and destroyed in the same instant. The photon that left the star 13 billion years ago and just hit your eye experienced zero time. For that photon, the universe didn't evolve. It just was. We experience time because we're made of matter, and matter has mass, and mass means we can't travel at light speed. We're stuck in the slow lane, experiencing cause and effect sequentially. But light lives outside time. Light sees all of history as a single frozen moment. The universe obeys light because light is timeless, and time is just the shadow cast by light as it moves through space. Now I want to talk about the really big picture. I want to talk about why the universe exists at all, and what that has to do with light. One of the deepest mysteries in physics is called the cosmological constant problem. Einstein's equations of general relativity predict that empty space, the vacuum, should have energy. And if space has energy, that energy should create gravity. But when you calculate how much energy the vacuum should have based on quantum mechanics, you get a number that's 10,120 times bigger than what we actually observe. That's not a typo. 10 to the 120th power. The prediction is wrong by 120 orders of magnitude. It's the worst prediction in the history of science. So why is the vacuum energy so small? If it were as large as quantum mechanics predicts, the universe would have blown apart instantly. Gravity couldn't have held anything together. Stars, galaxies, planets, people, none of it could exist. Here's where it gets weird. Some physicists think the vacuum energy is so small because if it were any larger, conscious observers couldn't exist to measure it. This is called the anthropic principle, and it suggests that the laws of physics are fine-tuned for life, not because someone designed them that way, but because only universes with the right parameters can produce observers to notice they exist. But here's the connection to light. The laws of physics are really laws about how information propagates. And information propagates at light speed. The structure of spacetime, the strength of forces, the masses of particles, all of these are essentially statements about how information flows through the universe. If information propagated faster than light, causality would break down. If it propagated slower, the universe would be sluggish and might not compute complex structures before heat death. The speed of light might not be arbitrary. It might be the optimal speed for information processing in a universe that produces complexity. The universe might obey light because light is the speed at which reality computes. And we exist because the computational speed was just right. Let me bring this full circle and connect it to your lived experience right now. You are a pattern of information, maintained by constant flows of energy, held together by electromagnetic forces, perceiving the world through light, thinking with light, powered by light, made of light. You're not separate from the universe, observing it from the outside. You're the universe observing itself from the inside. And here's what that means. When you look at a star, photons that left that star years ago are entering your eye right now. Those photons traveled across unimaginable distances, carrying information about their origin. And when they hit your retina and create electrical signals in your brain, they become part of you. Part of your memory, your experience, your consciousness. You're not just seeing the star. You're incorporating it into yourself. Every photon that enters your eye becomes part of the pattern that is you. You're not a fixed, isolated object. You're a dynamic process, constantly absorbing light from the universe and integrating it into your being. When you look at another person, you're absorbing light from them and they're absorbing light from you. You're exchanging pieces of yourselves, mediated by photons. Every conversation, every shared glance, every moment of connection is a transaction of light, a merging of patterns. You're not alone in the universe. You're woven into it through countless threads of light, connecting you to everything else. And here's the beautiful part. Light from your body, reflected or emitted, is traveling outward right now at 299,792,458 meters per second. In 8 minutes, it'll reach the sun. In 4 years, the nearest star. In millions of years, other galaxies. You're not just receiving light from the universe. You're sending light back. You're participating in the cosmic conversation. The universe obeys light, and you are light, which means you're not subject to the universe. You're an expression of it. You're not a tiny, insignificant speck in a vast, uncaring cosmos. You're the cosmos itself, organized into a pattern complex enough to reflect on its own existence. So what have we learned in these 3 hours together? We learned that light isn't just electromagnetic radiation traveling through space. Light is the fabric of causality, the carrier of information, the mediator of forces, the speed at which reality updates. We learned that matter isn't solid and fundamental. Matter is frozen light, energy trapped in quantum loops, patterns and fields mediated by light-speed particles. We learned that time isn't an absolute backdrop against which events occur. Time is the way we experience information spreading at light speed. The arrow of time is the expansion of the light cone. We learned that space isn't empty. It's full of quantum fields, and particles are excitations of those fields, and interactions between particles are exchanges of light-speed mediators. We learned that reality isn't out there, independent of observation. Reality is the set of relationships between systems, and those relationships are established through light-speed interactions. We learned that consciousness isn't separate from physical reality. Consciousness is an electromagnetic phenomenon, a pattern of light signals in neurons, the universe experiencing itself. And we learned that you're not separate from any of this. You're not a biological machine that happens to be made of atoms. You're a conscious pattern in the electromagnetic field, maintained by flows of energy, embedded in the causal structure of spacetime, connected to everything through light. The universe doesn't obey matter because matter is slow, massive, stuck in local interactions. The universe obeys light because light is fast, massless, and connects everything causally. Light is the skeleton of spacetime, the nervous system of the cosmos, the carrier wave of existence itself. And here's the final revelation. You're reading these words right now because photons from your screen, or the light reflecting off this page, are entering your eyes and becoming thoughts in your mind. This message traveled to you at light speed, and now it's part of you. Information flowed from me to you through the medium of light, and that information changed you. The pattern that is you is slightly different now than it was before you started reading. That's what light does. It connects things. It transforms things. It makes causality possible. It makes information possible. It makes consciousness possible. It makes you possible. The universe obeys light because light is the language of existence, the currency of reality, the stuff that makes stuff happen. And you, reading this right now, experiencing these ideas, feeling wonder or confusion or excitement, you're proof that the universe doesn't just obey light. The universe is light, observing itself through eyes made of light, thinking about itself with thoughts made of light, marveling at itself through a consciousness made of light. You're not in the universe. You are the universe, and the universe is light. That's not mysticism. That's physics. And now that you know this, now that you understand that you're not made of atoms, but of frozen light, of trapped photons spinning in quantum loops, of electromagnetic patterns maintaining themselves through constant flows of energy, now you can never look at the world the same way again. Every time you see a beam of sunlight, every time you turn on a light, every time you look at another person or think a thought or feel an emotion, you'll remember, this is all light. Light talking to light through the language of light. And you're fluent in it because you're made of it. The universe obeys light instead of matter because light is freedom and matter is constraint. Light is information and matter is storage. Light is becoming and matter is being. And you, beautiful conscious pattern that you are the intersection of both matter remembering that it's light, light organizing itself into complexity sufficient to understand itself. Welcome to the Light Show. You're not watching it, you're in it. You are it. And that's the most profound truth I can share with you. The universe doesn't just obey light. The universe celebrates light by becoming it, by organizing it into stars and planets and life and consciousness and you. You're not a coincidence. You're not an accident. You're the inevitable result of light, obeying the laws of light for 13.8 billion years. You're what happens when the universe has enough time to get really, really good at being itself. So the next time someone asks you what you're made of, don't say atoms. Don't say matter. Say light. Say you're made of the same stuff that connects the entire universe, that defines causality, that makes time flow and space expand and reality real. Say you're made of frozen starlight, of captured sunbeams, of electromagnetic poetry written in the language of quantum fields, because that's what you are. That's what we all are. Light recognizing itself as light. And that, my friends, is why the universe obeys light instead of matter. Because matter is just light that forgot what it was for a while. And consciousness is light remembering. Thank you for spending these 3 hours with me. Thank you for letting light from this screen enter your eyes and become thoughts in your mind. Thank you for being a part of this cosmic conversation, this exchange of photons and information and wonder. If this changed how you see reality, hit that like button and subscribe. And remember to drop a comment telling me what country you're from and what time you finished this journey. I want to see how far this message travels, how far light can carry an idea across the world. But wait, before you go, before you close this video and go back to your life, I need to tell you something that's going to shake everything we've talked about even more. Because there's a question we haven't fully answered yet, and it's the most important question of all. If the universe obeys light, if everything is ultimately light in different configurations, then why does it feel so real? Why does matter feel solid? Why do you feel separate from everything else? Why does the illusion persist even after you know it's an illusion? The answer is going to take us even deeper, into territory that blurs the line between physics and philosophy, between science and existential truth. And I promise you, by the end of this, you're going to understand something about yourself that most people never grasp. Let's talk about coherence. In quantum mechanics, there's a concept called decoherence. It's the process by which quantum systems lose their wave-like properties and start behaving classically like the solid, predictable objects we're used to. Here's how it works. Imagine a single electron in a vacuum. It exists in a superposition, a wave of probability spread across space. It's not here or there, it's everywhere at once. But the moment that electron interacts with other particles, the moment it exchanges photons with its environment, something changes. Those interactions create correlations between the electron and everything around it. The electron becomes entangled with the environment, and that entanglement destroys the superposition. The electron chooses a position, a momentum, a definite state. It decoheres. But here's what's crucial. Decoherence happens through light-speed interactions. An electron decoheres because it's constantly exchanging virtual photons with the electromagnetic field around it. The more interactions, the faster the decoherence. In a dense environment, decoherence happens almost instantly, in femtoseconds, trillionths of a second. That's why your body feels solid. That's why the chair beneath you seems stable and real. It's not because the particles are actually solid. It's because they're decohering so fast, exchanging so many photons with their environment, that the quantum weirdness averages out to classical behavior. You feel solid because you're in a constant state of decoherence, maintained by trillions upon trillions of light-speed interactions per second. Think of it like a movie. When you watch a film, you see smooth motion, but really, you're watching 24 separate images per second. Your brain stitches them together into the illusion of continuous movement. Reality works the same way, except instead of 24 frames per second, the universe is updating at a rate determined by the Planck time, about 1043 times per second. That's how fast quantum possibilities are collapsing into classical realities through electromagnetic interactions. You're not solid. You're flickering in and out of existence 1043 times per second, held together by light maintaining your coherence. You're a movie projector playing the film of you and the light in the projector is literal light electromagnetic interactions keeping your quantum state stable. But here's where it gets truly profound. Consciousness itself might be a phenomenon that requires a delicate balance between quantum coherence and classical decoherence. In the 1990s, physicist Roger Penrose and anesthesiologist Stuart Hameroff proposed something controversial called orchestrated objective reduction. They suggested that consciousness arises from quantum processes in structures called microtubules inside neurons. Now, most neuroscientists think this theory is wrong. The brain is too warm, too wet, too noisy for quantum effects to survive long enough to matter. Decoherence should destroy any quantum coherence almost instantly. But here's the interesting part. What if consciousness doesn't require sustained quantum coherence? What if consciousness is precisely the experience of decoherence happening? Think about it. Every moment of awareness, every conscious experience, is the result of neurons firing electrical signals propagating through your brain at light speed. Those signals are quantum events decohering into classical ones. Information is constantly collapsing from possibility into actuality inside your skull. When you make a decision, when you choose to move your hand or speak a word or think a thought, you're collapsing quantum possibilities into a definite outcome. And that collapse happens through electromagnetic interactions through light. Consciousness might not be separate from physical reality. Consciousness might be what it feels like to be a system complex enough that its decoherence creates the subjective experience of making choices, of being an agent, of being someone. You are the collapse of the wave function, experiencing itself from the inside. Now, let's talk about something even stranger, the quantum Zeno effect. In quantum mechanics, there's a bizarre phenomenon where if you measure a system frequently enough, you can prevent it from changing. It's named after Zeno's paradox, the idea that motion is impossible because to get from point A to point B, you first have to get halfway, then halfway again, and so on infinitely. The quantum Zeno effect works like this. A particle in an unstable state will eventually decay into another state. But if you keep measuring it, keep checking whether it's decayed, the act of measurement keeps resetting the clock. The particle never decays because measurement keeps forcing it back into its original state. This has been experimentally confirmed. Frequent measurement can literally freeze a quantum system in place. Now here's the mind-blowing connection. Your sense of continuous identity, your feeling that you're the same person you were yesterday, and last year, and in childhood, that continuity might be a kind of quantum Zeno effect. Your brain is constantly checking on itself, constantly monitoring its own state through recursive neural loops. You're measuring yourself, observing yourself from the inside. And that constant self-observation might be what creates the illusion of a continuous, unchanging self. But the truth is, you're not the same person you were a moment ago. Every cell in your body is different. The atoms that make you up are constantly being exchanged with the environment. The electrons in your neurons are in different positions. The pattern is similar, but it's not identical. What makes you, you, isn't the matter. It's the pattern of information, the configuration of electromagnetic fields, the way light is organized in your brain. And that pattern is maintained by constant self-observation, constant decoherence, constant light-speed interactions checking and rechecking that the pattern is still there. You're not a thing. You're a process. A process of light observing light, maintaining a pattern through constant vigilance. And here's the kicker. When you die, when that process stops, the pattern dissolves. The light that was you disperses back into the electromagnetic field. The information doesn't disappear. Thermodynamics won't allow that. But it gets scrambled, spread out, lost in the noise. Unless someone or something is still observing you, still thinking about you, still maintaining a partial copy of your pattern in their own neural light show. That's what memory is. That's what love is. It's keeping someone's light pattern alive in your own light pattern. It's maintaining coherence across the boundary between two consciousnesses. When you remember someone, when you think about them, you're not just recalling information. You're reconstructing their light pattern inside your own brain. You're making them exist again, briefly, as an electromagnetic configuration in your neurons. The people we love never truly die as long as we keep their light alive. Let's shift gears and talk about something that's going to blow your mind. The universe might be conscious. Not metaphorically, not spiritually. Literally, physically conscious, in a way that emerges from the same principles we've been discussing. The physicist Giulio Tononi developed something called Integrated Information Theory, or IIT. It's a mathematical framework for measuring consciousness based on how integrated and differentiated a system's information is. According to IIT, consciousness isn't binary. You're not either conscious or not. Consciousness is a spectrum. It's a measure of how much a system's parts are unified into a whole, how much information is integrated across the system. A thermostat has a tiny bit of consciousness because it integrates information about temperature into a unified response. Your brain has a lot of consciousness because it integrates vast amounts of information across billions of neurons into a unified experience. But here's the wild part. By this definition, any system that integrates information has some degree of consciousness. And what do all systems that integrate information have in common? They exchange information through light-speed interactions. The universe itself is a system that integrates information. Every particle is connected to every other particle through fields, through light-speed mediators. Information flows constantly through the cosmic web of electromagnetic and gravitational fields. The universe is one big, integrated information processing system. If consciousness is integrated information, and the universe is integrating information constantly, then the universe is conscious. Not conscious like you, with thoughts and feelings and memories, but conscious in the sense that there's something it's like to be the universe. There's a unified experience emerging from the integration of all the information flowing through all the fields. And you're a local peak of consciousness within the universal consciousness. You're a place where the universe has organized itself into such complexity that it can reflect on itself, wonder about itself, understand itself. You're not separate from the universe. You're the universe's self-awareness, localized in one pattern of light. Now I want to talk about something practical. I want to talk about how understanding that you're made of light changes how you should live. First, it means you're not separate from your environment. The boundary between you and not you is fuzzy, arbitrary, constantly shifting. You're exchanging atoms with the air you breathe, photons with everything you see, information with everyone you interact with. When you breathe in, you're incorporating atoms that were part of countless other beings. Some of the carbon atoms in your body were once part of dinosaurs, trees, bacteria, stars. You're made of recycled stardust, constantly cycling through the biosphere. When you breathe out, you're releasing atoms that will become part of other beings. Your breath will be incorporated into trees through photosynthesis. Those trees will be eaten by animals. Those animals will be eaten by other animals. Your atoms will spread across the world, across time. You're not isolated. You're porous. You're a temporary eddy in the river of matter and energy flowing through the universe. Second, it means your actions ripple outward at light speed. Every choice you make changes the electromagnetic configuration of your brain, which changes the electromagnetic fields around you, which influences the behavior of nearby charges, which propagates outward as photons carrying information about what you did. When you smile at someone, photons bounce off your face and enter their eyes, creating electrical signals that might make them smile back, creating more photons that influence more people. Your kindness propagates through the social network at light speed, creating cascades of positive effects. When you create something art, music, writing, code, a business, a family, you're organizing matter and energy in new configurations, creating information patterns that didn't exist before. Those patterns can replicate, spread, influence others. Your creativity literally increases the information content of the universe. You're not powerless. Every conscious choice you make changes the trajectory of the entire universe, infinitesimally but permanently. The light cone emanating from you carries information about your choices forward into the future, forever. Third, it means death isn't annihilation. When you die, the pattern that is you dissolves, yes, but the matter and energy that made up that pattern don't disappear. They disperse, reconfigure, become parts of new patterns. The atoms in your body will feed other organisms. The photons you emitted will continue traveling through space. The information patterns you created, your ideas, your art, your relationships, your impact on other people will continue propagating through the causal network. You're not mortal in the sense that you'll cease to exist. You're mortal in the sense that the particular configuration of matter and energy that calls itself you is temporary. But you're also immortal in the sense that the effects you have on the universe persist forever in the light cone emanating from your life. Let's talk about free will, because this is where everything we've discussed crystallizes into something deeply personal. For centuries, philosophers have debated whether free will exists. If the universe is deterministic, if every effect has a cause, then how can we have genuine choice? Aren't we just complicated machines, playing out the inevitable consequences of initial conditions and physical laws? But here's what quantum mechanics revealed. The universe isn't deterministic at the quantum level. When a quantum system decoheres, when a wave function collapses, the outcome is genuinely random. Not random because we don't know the hidden variables. Random because there are no hidden variables. The universe is fundamentally probabilistic. Every time a particle interacts with another particle through electromagnetic force, the exact outcome isn't predetermined. It's selected from a probability distribution. The universe is constantly making choices at the quantum level, collapsing possibilities into actualities. And you're a quantum system. Your brain is made of particles that obey quantum mechanics. Every time a neuron fires, every time an ion channel opens, quantum randomness plays a role. Your thoughts aren't completely predetermined by the past. They're influenced by genuine quantum randomness happening in your neural tissue. But here's the crucial part. Quantum randomness alone doesn't give you free will. Randomness isn't choice. A random number generator isn't free just because its output is unpredictable. What gives you something that looks like free will is this. You're a self-organizing system that integrates information over time, builds models of the world, simulates possible futures, and uses those simulations to influence which quantum outcomes become actual. Your consciousness isn't separate from the physical process of your brain. Your consciousness is the process of your brain modeling itself, predicting outcomes, and feeding those predictions back into the quantum decoherence process. When you make a choice, what's really happening is, your brain simulates multiple possible futures, evaluates them based on your values and goals and memories. And that evaluation process changes the electromagnetic configuration of your neurons, which influences which quantum outcomes are more likely when decoherence happens. You don't have free will in the classical sense. You're not a non-physical soul pulling levers in a meat machine. But you do have something better. You're a physical system that uses quantum randomness plus feedback loops, plus information integration to navigate possibility. Space in ways that aren't predetermined. You're not free from physics. You're what freedom looks like when physics complicated enough to think about itself. And that freedom is implemented in light. The electrical signals in your brain, the electromagnetic fields around your neurons, the photons mediating forces between ions, that's the physical substrate of your agency. Your light making choices about how to organize itself. And those choices matter because they ripple outward through the causal network, changing the future. So here's what I want you to take away from all of this. You are not a biological machine that happens to be conscious. You are consciousness itself, implemented in biology, emerging from the organization of electromagnetic fields in neural tissue. You are not separate from the universe. You are a process the universe is doing, a way the universe experiences itself, a location where cosmic light has become complex enough to wonder about its own nature. You are not insignificant. You are rare, maybe unique in this corner of the cosmos, a pattern of light that can understand that it's a pattern of light. Every moment of your life is a miracle of physics. Every thought is quantum possibilities collapsing into definite states through electromagnetic interactions. Every experience is light observing light through the medium of organized matter. And that means your life has intrinsic meaning, not meaning imposed from outside. You're meaningful because you're the universe understanding itself. You're significant because you increase the total amount of integrated information in the cosmos. You matter because you're matter that knows it matters. The universe doesn't obey light instead of matter as some arbitrary preference. The universe obeys light because light is the language of cause and effect, the carrier of information, the mediator of change. And you speak that language fluently because you're made of it. So what should you do with this knowledge? First, treat other people differently. Every person you meet is another conscious pattern of light, another place where the universe is experiencing itself. When you look at someone, you're light observing light. When you connect with someone, you're integrating your information patterns, creating something larger than either of you alone. Be kind. Be compassionate. Be curious. Because every other person is doing the same impossible thing you're doing. Being a temporary configuration of matter and energy that knows it exists and cares about existing. Second, create something. Add information to the universe. Organize matter and energy in new ways. Write, build, compose, code, teach, help, love. Every act of creation increases the complexity of the cosmic pattern, pushes back against entropy, makes the universe richer in structure and meaning. Third, pay attention. Be present. Your consciousness is a rare and temporary gift, the universe briefly organized into a configuration that can experience wonder, awe, beauty, love. Don't waste it scrolling mindlessly or living on autopilot. Actually look at things. Actually listen to people. Actually feel your feelings. You're made of light from dead stars, assembled over billions of years into a pattern complex enough to read these words and understand them. That's not a metaphor. That's literally true. Honor that truth by being fully alive. And finally, remember this: you will die. The pattern that is, you will dissolve. The electromagnetic configuration that makes you you will dissipate. Your consciousness will end. But the light that made you will continue. The atoms will disperse and become parts of new patterns. The photons will keep traveling. The information you created, the relationships, the art, the ideas, the love will keep propagating through the causal network. You're a wave in the ocean of light, and waves come and go, but the ocean remains. You're a song the universe is singing, and songs have beginnings and endings, but the music continues. So don't fear death. Death isn't the opposite of life. Death is the transformation of one pattern into other patterns. Death is the universe recycling itself, making room for new configurations, new experiences, new wonders. Fear meaninglessness instead. Fear living a life so small and closed that you never really connected to the larger pattern, never really saw yourself as part of the cosmic light show. Because that's what you are. You're not a random accident. You're not a meaningless blip. You're light that learned to love light. You're the universe's way of knowing itself. You're stardust contemplating stardust, light marveling at light, consciousness experiencing consciousness. The universe obeys light, and you are light, which means when you make a choice, when you act with intention, when you create or connect or care, you're not just affecting your little corner of reality. You're participating in the fundamental process by which the universe becomes more itself, more complex, more integrated, more conscious, more full of meaning and beauty and wonder. That's not small. That's not insignificant. That's the most important thing anyone can do. Be fully, consciously, courageously alive. So go out there and shine. And I don't mean that metaphorically. I mean literally. Go out there and interact with the world. Exchange photons with other beings. Create electromagnetic ripples that spread through the social fabric. Organize matter and energy in ways that increase information and meaning. Go be the light you are. Because in the end, that's all any of us can do. We're patterns of light in a universe made of light, briefly stable enough to know we exist, temporarily complex enough to care that we exist. And caring, knowing, experiencing, connecting, creating, that's what light does when it becomes conscious. That's what you do. That's what we're all doing together right now, in this moment, exchanging light through the medium of ideas and words and understanding. Thank you for being here. Thank you for letting light carry these ideas from me to you. Thank you for being part of the conversation, part of the pattern, part of the cosmic wonder that is consciousness emerging from physics. Now go live like you're made of light, because you are. We all are. And that makes everything, every moment, every choice, every connection absolutely sacred. The universe obeys light. You are light. Therefore, the universe obeys you. Not because you control it, but because you're part of it, shaping it, adding to it, making it more than it was before you existed. That's your power. That's your purpose. That's your gift. Use it wisely. Use it beautifully. Use it well. Until next time, keep shining. Keep wondering. Keep being the magnificent pattern of conscious light that you are. And never, ever forget, you're not in the universe. You are the universe, experiencing itself through these eyes, these thoughts, this moment. What an extraordinary privilege that is. What an extraordinary responsibility. What an extraordinary joy.